In The Believers, Martin Sheen is a man seeking two things. I think you're seeking two things and your character is seeking two things. And I'd like to draw a parallel here. One is the relationship with your son, which comes under some stress, needless to say. And the other thing is, well, it's a kind of an awareness of some of the Hispanic roots and activities going on in New York City. Where does Martin Sheen come into this as a father of four? And as a person with Hispanic roots that maybe you're still only just discovering in some senses, I thought I might follow up on both of those things.
Yeah.
First, okay, the relationship with the young boy in The Believers.
Yeah.
How might that be compared to the relationship with your four children? Because it's an especially stressful kind of upbringing, I would think, not involving psychic problems. but come on, Dad, I mean, how have you managed to keep four kids together?
Well, I had a lot of help with my wife, Janet.
Does she not get mentioned enough in this context?
Well, I would think not, but she's very shy besides, and really doesn't like to be brought up, as it were.
I see.
But she exerts a very, very nourishing and inspiring influence on all of us. You know, we were married 26 years nearly, and so she's kept us all together in a very tight group.
Is she the only one of the six that does not have the acting bug?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Is it better that way?
I got her to act once.
Really?
In Kennedy, yeah. On my birthday, I asked her if she would appear in a scene, and I got some information on an artist who painted John F. Kennedy when he was president, and so we got Janet to play it because she's an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of my favorite moments in the show. Elaine de Kooning was the painter.
Oh, indeed,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Now the moment comes as the four are growing up that career choices need to be made.
Yeah.
Some choose the name Estevez, some choose the name Sheen. Interesting. It's got to be a unique situation.
I wonder why. Well, you know, I have to confess that I never changed my name officially. I adopted the name Sheen, but officially my name is still Ramon Estevez. We were married under that name. All the children were baptized under that name. That's the name on their birth certificate.
But I remember Bishop Sheen. I remember this guy, Tuesday nights.
That's where I took it from. I thought of him as a brilliant actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I took Martin from the casting director at CBS when I first came to New York in 1959. He was very encouraging to me. His name is Robert Dale Martin. In fact, he appeared in Kennedy as Senator Fulbright. Interesting.
Do the kids grow up confused about the two names?
No, I don't think so. Emilio was steadfast. He always wanted to use the name, and I was very grateful. I love the name. And I'm still Ramon. I shall always be Ramon. But when I came to New York in 1959, there were image problems, you know. People thought of someone who looked like me as being not Latino. You know, didn't have dark hair and dark eyes and dark complexion.
And movies like Blackboard Jungle were showing us Puerto Rican delinquents. We were having a kind of a problem with that.
Oh, yeah, they blamed the Puerto Ricans for everything then. Now it's the homeless. Yeah, I came up in that during that time in New York when the Puerto Rican community was establishing itself in New York. And so I felt that I looked more Irish. It would be easier to deal with that than have to force people to learn how to say my name, pronounce it, which very few people did. So I kept the name to myself and created this character, if you will, Martin Sheen, who was free to bounce around in any direction he wanted, you know.
Now, children are notorious for having no sense of context. Did they ever ask you or even rebuke you for changing the name?
Well, they always kind of knew the story. My wife met me after I had changed the name. In fact, I think it was a couple of weeks before I told her what my real name was. But she had no objection to being married, Mrs. Ramon Estevez. Mm-hmm. And we married in the church even. I had a very great intensity as a young actor to succeed, to have a major career. I wanted to have a big career as an actor, in movies primarily. And so I didn't give a lot of attention to detail with the children. Janet, in large measure, was much closer to them growing up than I was. I was a disciplinarian, but I was also divided in my attention. It was always outside. I brought the problems of the career into the home, and the lack of success used to gnaw at me. That lasted for a very long time. I was motivated by that through most of my adult life, until Apocalypse. I changed.
They call that the turning point.
Yeah, it was a radical change. In fact, the specific day was March 5th, 1977, where I became very seriously ill and damn near died. And I knew that if I pursued this same road, that it would be a dead end, and that I had to change very quickly. And so I went about, for lack of a better term, the search for my spiritual center. I wanted to know who I was and why I was here.
But isn't it ironic that that's the project that son Charlie is with you on, and then years later he makes Platoon,
He makes the same.
in which he returns back there.
He goes back again. Yeah,
Odd
it's
symmetry there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a remarkable coincidence. But then I changed, I had a very difficult 4-year period from 77 to 81. In 81 I went to India to do a small part in Gandhi. India
Right.
revolutionized my spirituality and really spun my head around and straightened it out. And I came out of India staggered by what I had seen and felt and heard, and went straight away to France to do another picture and tried to reflect on what happened in India. And I knew I had to return to Catholicism.
This change, that return, was it reflected then on the home front?
Oh, very much so.
Children and
yeah.
wife comment on that?
Yeah, very much so. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything worse than a reformed anything. And I came home proselytizing and trying to drag them to church and trying to promulgate the faith in my own family. It was a big mistake. And I realized that after a while, when they didn't show any interest at all, and I realized after a couple of years, really, that the best way to promulgate the faith was to live it. So I've confined myself to my deeds rather than my mouth when it comes to Catholicism, which I think is the best way to approach it.
That double search, let's get to the other part of that, which is the Hispanic heritage.
Yeah.
In the movie, you discover a great deal about Santeria,
Yeah.
although oddly enough, your character never engages with it, even though you are Hispanic.
Yeah.
But that your children, have they discovered more of the ethnicity of the Spanish heritage than you had in your own upbringing?
I think they did, because although they were all born in New York, they really grew up in California, where there's a very strong Latino culture and presence. And so when they were in school, they were exposed to a lot of other Latinos, Hispanics, mostly from Mexico and the Mexican community in Los Angeles. And
Does that mean you can learn from them a little bit
I
about your
learned a
own
very
roots?
great deal from them, yeah. I remember Emilio playing on the soccer team, and all of the other players were Mexicans. And they would yell throughout the game in Spanish. Emilio had to learn the terminology of the game. And here you saw all these kids, and then this blonde-haired kid running around, and they're screaming Emilio. And you'd figure it'd be anyone but him.
How well can you speak Spanish?
Unfortunately, and I'm ashamed to admit it, I speak very, very little. And I've never studied it, so.
Do you ever have a feeling that had you been starting an acting career now, you would not have even questioned changing the name Esteves?
I would never, ever question it. I never changed it officially. I'm still
Right.
officially Lamar Esteves. Yeah, I'm ashamed that I changed it, frankly. I wished I had not. And if I was starting now, of course, I would have done exactly what Emilio did.
Dad and the kids. Now, a third search maybe for a certain kind of global harmony. You are famous for being on the barricades and in the trenches now. It
Well.
began for you at 40, I guess. Do you have a dream of your own children in their 20s taking up the causes like that, or will it come to them late too?
Well, that would be, how shall I say, very gratifying. I don't expect that. I don't expect it really from anyone. I go and do these things because I cannot not do them. They are an extension of my faith. I don't make my living doing them, but I say stay alive by doing them.
In fact, you draw religious parallels with fatted calves and tithing to the nuclear
very much so,
obsession.
yes, I think of the arms race as a state religion, nuclearism. We tithe by our taxes. And we have accepted the bomb as our personal savior. Our faith demands that we accept God as our sole deity and that we trust Him.
And tell us what you do to that fatted calf.
Well, we spit on it during the ceremony, and sometimes we even moon the high priest in public, but we remain in the tribe. I love my country, and I love it enough to risk its wrath by trying to raise its consciousness, just as I do with my children. They don't always agree with me, and I know they're not when I try and draw their attention to the truth, when they may be hurt by not accepting the truth, but they know where I come from, what I stand for, and they know they'll always get a straight shot from me. So I have to risk their not liking what I have to say in order to really express how much I love them.
Right.
I do the same thing for my country. I love my country enough to risk being ostracized and punished, really.
May all these searches continue.
Thank you very
Martin
much.
Sheen,
Thank
thank you so much. I'm with Martin in Toronto. He's in The Believers, and I'm John Tibbetts for KCTV5.